member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and my colleague for the question, and I think it's an important one to respond to. What is the future potential of the energy sector in Canada? But it's important for the member to know that while there is an economic impact, no doubt, of fluctuations in the oil price. Investors understand that oil prices go up and oil prices go down. And significantly, investments are informed by an assessment of the long-term confidence they can have in that market. And that's why, even when oil prices have been low, we've seen significant investments made in the energy sector in other jurisdictions. We have a particular challenge here in Canada, and that's to do with market access. It's to do with the fact that you have great energy projects that make it most of the way through the process, and then you have Liberal MPs publicly lobbying Cabinet to kill those projects, and then they're not able to proceed. So we have a challenge in Canada facing the energy sector, but it's not a problem of a price, because the price is always fluctuating, and these decisions are made on long-term horizons. The problem we have is politics, and I've been told by ambassadors that Canada is seen as a country with political risk when it comes to investment in the sector. It's not a technical problem, it's a political problem.
Hear, hear.
To participate in the debate on Bill C-12, a bill that does absolutely nothing for the environment. By way of analogy, I want to explain a little bit what this bill actually does and what it doesn't do. So in 2015, Stephen Harper passed balanced budget legislation as part of the budget. And the idea was that you would put in place a law that would make it require that the government in most situations run a balanced budget. And that was, I think, a good idea, and one that was advanced by many fiscal conservatives, believing that, in principle, that if you had a law in place requiring the government to run balanced budgets, that they would be much more likely to balance budgets going forward. The problem was that in 2016, when the Liberals came in, every time you pass a budget, you also are passing a new law. So what did they do? They repealed the balanced budget law. And in Alberta, in my province, we had a balanced budget law in place that was actually repealed by a different premier of the same political stripe. So the idea, desirable certainly, that you might have legislation in place that would bind the actions of future governments might have some rhetorical impact. But it only goes so far insofar as a subsequent government, or maybe a subsequent group of people from the same party even, could repeal or slightly amend the legislation in order to allow them to continue on the course they're on. Now, putting in place, and the Parliament Secretary has reminded me to split my time with the member for Edmonton Riverbend. I want to thank the Parliament Secretary for the Government House Leader for being so helpful all the time. And I'll look forward to further feedback from him, Madam Speaker, as we go. But you know, it was at least credible as an exercise for a government that was already running a balanced budget to put in place balanced budget legislation. Imagine how absurd it would be if today we had a government that was not running a balanced budget, had no intention of running a balanced budget, putting in place legislation to require a government in 2040 to run a balanced budget. That would be a little bit silly, right? It would be demonstrably an excuse for not having a plan to try to put in place legislation to bind a future government to have a plan that they don't currently have, recognizing full well that that future government could repeal the law that required them to have a plan, or at least extend it. So this brings me then to Bill C-12, a bill that does not present a plan for action when it comes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It's simply a framework by which the government would put in place a plan that they would be expected to follow, achieving certain targets at certain distant points in the future. And I have no problem supporting a bill that calls on government to act, to put in place targets, to act on those targets in response to future events as we move forward. But it shouldn't escape members of this House that we have yet another case in another important policy area where instead of putting forward an action plan, the government is choosing symbolism. they're choosing statement over substance. This Liberal government has been in place for 5 years, and we still don't have anything like a serious environmental plan. Instead, what we see from the government are warm words, attempts to demonstrate their feeling and solidarity, and then aspirations for distant dates. What frustrates me about the issue of the environment is that we have serious challenges in terms of our environment in Canada, and they require a serious response, a response that understands the opportunities and the trade-offs, and that makes choices today about how we move forward towards the realization of targets that have been put in place. Imposing new taxes is not going to cut it. That's the Liberals' approach. When they are talking about action, they're talking about putting in place new taxes. But new taxes on Canadian industry and Canadian activity only is simply going to chase jobs and opportunity beyond our borders. If the Liberals succeed, as it seems they're intent on doing, in shutting down our energy sector, those investments will still happen. Global demand for energy is going up. People need energy. The question isn't, can we shut off our use of energy? The question is, can we find ways of producing energy, delivering energy, that are more efficient, that are more effective? Can we provide that quality of life to people around the world that requires an increase in the use of energy, but do it in a way that reduces greenhouse gas emissions? And if you recognize that the problem isn't going to be solved by reducing use of energy, it's only going to be solved, generally speaking, by increasing the efficiency of energy production, then that should lead you to lead in to the production of energy in a way that is going to be clean and efficient and effective, but also to lean in a way that recognizes the existing technology. It's great to talk about wind and solar and other alternative sources of energy, but we have to recognize as well where the existing technology is today and how we can make concrete, meaningful improvements that use existing technology that will provide energy to people right now to meet their energy needs. And that's why I believe that a real environmental plan should be pro-Canadian and pro-Canadian energy. We should encourage the development of Canadian energy, and we should also encourage our energy sector to continue on the road they're on in terms of improving efficiency, improving effectiveness, delivering more energy to more people in an efficient way. Now, we have colleagues in this House from all other parties, frankly, who attack the development of pipelines, who attack efforts to find new markets for Canadian energy. Shame. And we know by and large that the issue for them is not about really the transportation. It's generally about wanting to shut down the production of that energy. But they don't think about what will replace Canadian energy if we shut it down. It's going to be energy from other countries. A member of the NDP was just attacking the Keystone XL project. We've had other members attack other projects in the place. It was the Liberal government that imposed arbitrary regulations which killed the Energy East pipeline project. So we have politicians from all parties, aside from the Conservatives, that are attacking energy projects, but they don't think about what the alternative would be. Should the United States be importing more energy resources from Venezuela with lower environmental standards and lower labor standards? Should Eastern Canada est-ce que c'est bien pour les gens au Québec de continuer?
And is it good for people in Quebec to continue to import gas from and oil from Saudi Arabia?
Energy resources from outside of Canada. I would like Alberta to be able to supply Quebec with more of its energy. And of course, the Bloc aren't going to like that, because that would be great for national unity if Alberta energy was fueling Quebec's energy needs. The fact is, though, that more Canadian energy, cleaner Canadian energy, with continually improving innovation and standards, would be good for the environment, not bad for the environment. It would reduce global greenhouse gas emissions. And we can do even better than that, Madam Speaker. We can make Canada a superpower in terms of the development of clean energy technology. We can incentivize the development of new technology and then export that technology around the world. We can meet our environmental obligations by helping developing countries access the technology that we have here, helping them access it to address environmental challenges that are both local to those places but also global. This is our contribution. This would be, Madam Speaker, a great vision for environmental improvement and economic development, not to shut down our energy sector, but to mobilize and unleash our energy sector as an engine for technological development that can actually respond to the challenges of climate change and other environmental challenges that we see around the world. That's the real vision for the environment and the economy that has been lacking from a government that would prefer to send signals and demonstrate their interest without actually taking action. So can we achieve the targets in Bill C-12? Can we get to net zero by 2050? I believe we can, but we'll only get there not by putting in place legislation that merely sets out targets, but by supporting and unleashing the development of our energy sector as a clean energy hub for the world. That is what we need from this government, a government that truly understands the importance of addressing our environmental challenges and supporting our workers through development, through a pro-Canadian energy approach. That's not what we have from this government. That's what we need going forward.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I always enjoy the comments of the member. Heard him many times and really appreciate his comments. He said we have no plan. And I would like to ask the member if he and his party are going to try and make the case during this debate that we have no plan, why they've spent so much energy and so much effort and so much passion trying to contradict and vote against and deny the many items in our plan that are now reducing greenhouse gases.
The member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. There is no plan. All the government talks about are using the environmental challenge we face as an excuse to raise taxes and shut down Canadian energy. Of course, we're opposed to those things, not only because they're bad for our economy, but because they don't help us achieve our environmental objectives. I'll remind the member that Stephen Harper was the first and I believe the only Prime Minister in history to be able to put in place a plan that reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Now, some members would like us to have done more, to do more going forward. But I will take that record against Liberal increases in greenhouse gas emissions any day of the week, because they don't understand that the solution isn't shutting down Canadian energy and it's not higher taxes. It's rather unleashing our economy to pursue that potential that is going to allow us to together respond to these environmental challenges.